So this lecture will teach you a little bit about women in the 1950s. World War II brought economic growth to the United States that had never been seen before. This booming economy created a large demand for labor, especially with many Americans serving in the military. This offered new job opportunities for women and minorities. Women worked in new jobs in the war industry or in filling jobs vacated by those who went to war, especially men. About 300,000 American women served in the military during World War II. At the end of the war, women in jobs that had been traditionally filled by men were fired to make way for returning male veterans. Employment rates for women continued to increase in the 50s, but women were mostly limited to what were considered women's jobs, such as teaching, clerical work, domestic labor, and being store clerks. As the U.S. deindustrialized and its service sector grew, many middle-class white women worked as typists and secretaries, and they were unable to rise higher in employment ranks due to gender discrimination. Opportunities for African American women continued to be very limited, so that many could only work as domestic laborers, though some were school teachers, and in the North, some were clerical workers. Women faced huge social pressure to marry young, in their late teens or early 20s, and to have a big family. Women who could attend college were expected to go only to find a husband, not a career path. Women were pressured to be stay-at-home moms if their families could afford it. Most minority families could not afford this. Single mothers were often shunned and ostracized. Cold War propaganda transmitted the idea that strong nuclear families would help the United States beat the USSR. Not only were women marrying younger than before, they were having babies right away and continued to have them for decades. From 1940 to 1960, the number of families with 3 children doubled, and the number of families having a 4th child quadrupled. The media portrayed domesticity as the ideal for women. Domesticity means home or family life, as portrayed in this picture. Television shows and women's magazines claim that women were most responsible for their children and husbands' happiness and well-being. Women were told to keep their houses and appearances flawless. This picture here is a photo of the Cleaver family from Leave It to Beaver, which was a popular TV show in the 50s and 60s and even continued to play reruns in the 70s and 80s. In Leave It to Beaver portrayed the white nuclear family with specific gender roles. The first mass-produced suburb, Levittown, New York, was built in 1951. These homes were very affordable, costing only about $8,000 for a 3 or 4 bedroom house. Many returning veterans were able to buy a house because of the GI Bill, a law that said the federal government would back loans to World War II veterans. The homes were built quickly and cheaply. Mass production resulted in uniformity of design and homogeneous suburban neighborhoods. Millions of African Americans moved out of the South and into northeastern, midwestern, and western cities during the Great Migration, causing white flight to the suburbs. African Americans were not welcome in suburbs such as Levittown. Life in suburbia encouraged conformity. There was pressure to keep up with the Joneses with material purchases, such as cars, appliances, etc. New forms of media, in particular, the television, promoted consumer culture, with household products being strongly marketed to women. Look at these images here. These were similar to ones that were printed in popular magazines in the 1950s. According to these images, what do you think life was like for suburban women in the 1950s? The activities that you'll do following this slideshow will help you to answer the question, is the image of the happy 1950s housewife accurate? You will examine some documents in order to develop a claim answering that question.